Some impressive results in the first session. I know obviously it's just a couple hours of running, but your thoughts from the first session of testing?
Yeah, it was a good start to the test. We had good cars here last year, and Joseph and I both qualified well, and both were a factor in the race. I made a mistake in the race, otherwise I think we would have probably been on the podium. So coming here, we did a tire test here in the off season, so we felt pretty good about where we were as a team coming in here, which I think is good for JR too, coming in, to make that transition back to full-time guy a little easier, going into a place where, like Tony was just complaining about, Chevy does have a good package here, and we're thankful for that. But it's a good place for us to start. We have a good handle on this track, and hopefully we can keep it rolling.
I know that you in particular have a bit of a history with this track, spending some time here with your family as you were growing up. What does this track mean to you, and the fact that it's such a historical part of IndyCar, and now we're back here for the second year in a row?
Yeah, it's great to be back here. I grew up, pretty much all my spring breaks growing up as a kid were coming out to the Copper World Classic and IndyCar race here. So through the, very end of the 80s and then pretty much all of the 90s, I was either coming here to watch the IndyCar race or then participate in the Copper World Classic in the USAC series. So I spent a lot of time out here when I was young to then not come at all really from 2006 until last year. So really, really happy to be back at this racetrack. And I'm really excited about the changes that they've announced that they're making. The renderings look really cool. So it's great to see racetracks across the U.S. investing in the facilities and making it better for the fans.
And before we turn things over to JR, I'll ask you, what has his addition full-time to the team brought to Ed Carpenter Racing?
It's obviously something we've talked about a lot, and everyone wants to talk about all the change we've had this offseason, but in a lot of ways, I don't really feel like it's that much change because JR's been a part of the team the past 3 years, even though he hasn't been in the car as much as any of us wanted. He was still kind of in tune with what we were doing all the time, communicating with myself, Joseph, the engineers. So it's not your typical new driver coming into a team. He's pretty familiar with how we operate, and with most of the key people, we've had a couple changes in engineering. So that's really where the biggest change is at, is getting those relationships built and familiarity with the car and driver. But it feels good. We've worked together the past 3 years at Indy, and obviously JR helped us a lot more last year with some testing. So it's just nice to finally be able to give him an opportunity to be back full-time IndyCar racing.
And JR, I know during your term as a part-time Verizon IndyCar Series driver, you busy yourself with STEM programs, education programs, kind of furthering the education of the sport. But how great does it finally feel to be back full-time in a Verizon IndyCar Series car?
Yeah, it's great. You definitely, it starts to hit you this time of year that it's we're going to St. Pete and I'm going to race. We're not just going to hang out, So, it's definitely a different level of commitment, but, something that I've been used to before. And I think, as Ed was alluding to, just being around and being, up to speed basically on kind of what the team's done, how they do things, the personnel, all that kind of stuff. It feels like a pretty easy transition to be making, and we've got some challenges ahead of us. I think to be totally prepped and on the same page and ready to rock and roll, when it starts to really matter. But that's what tests like this are great for. I think a lot of guys are, kind of sitting around oh man, it's too bad we don't have a few more sets of tires and can do a little bit more running. We've got 2 whole days here. Honestly, for us, I think it's great because it gives us that little bit of extra time to kind of make sure that we're, just hitting our marks, along the way. And, as Ed said, here at Phoenix in particular, I had every confidence getting in the car first session that, we were going to start in the window. So it's just about, I think, all of us together being smart about how we approach it. And, for me, it's an awesome, sort of little change of pace to be back at it full time.
Did anything stick out to you from the first session, or things that you'll start trying in the night session when the conditions are more like what they'll be for the race on April 29th?
Yeah, I think here just the the race itself is such a can be such a difficult thing to sort of plan for. Where everybody, I think it's a little bit of an unknown for everybody in terms of how you're going to approach it, what downforce levels everyone going to be on. What is the competition level between Hondas and Chevys, and on either side of that, how are people approaching that, looking at the race. So I think you'll see a lot more cars on track out there together trying to figure that out, running in traffic, in the evening sessions in particular. But I think for us it's kind of like I was saying earlier, just about starting to build the communication, working with the new engineers on the team or on the 21 car, and I feel great about the couple of guys that have been brought in, Justin Taylor and Dan Hobbs. But we're all just kind of getting familiar with each other at the same time. So definitely a nice way to be able to do that when we know that we've got a good package to start with.
Great. Questions, David?
JR, physically, how was the track? You did over 50 laps, 61 laps, I think. How was it, and how was that broken down?
Yeah, we haven't done any true long runs or anything yet, so that's probably more when we'll know what it feels like. But I've been training with St. Vincent Sports Performance out of Indianapolis, which is where Ed and Joseph and and I trained there at the tail end of racing full time, and even for quite a while after that. So in terms of my sort of preseason prep, everything that I could have been doing up until this point, feel really good about that, and know that it's comparative to what other guys that have been racing full time have been doing in terms of their physical prep for getting in the car. I'm sure we're doing a day at Sonoma on Tuesday. I'm sure neck will be a little stiff, first time on the road course for sure. But I think I'll have a better answer for that probably at the end of the day tomorrow after we've done some long runs.
Other questions, Tony?
JR, how did your test and development work last year keep you race sharp, and knowing that you weren't just prepping for May, but you wound up having the extra couple months that you were filling in for Joseph?
Yeah, I mean, it helped a lot for me, both to the diversity of tracks and kind of situations that were a part of that. I'd been used to running at the GP and obviously on the Speedway, but running at Iowa, running at Road America, and then again at Mid-Ohio, it's you definitely, those are all places where you're doing something fairly different. And so for me to have that added familiarity with the types of things, particularly that Joseph was looking for in the race car, somebody who clearly had been finding what he was looking for, knew what he was looking for, and was making good on that on the track. That was really valuable for me, actually, to be coming into this year and have a little bit more of a sense of what's fast, what's not, what do I need for the car to be able to do, and have started that process ahead of time. Because definitely one of the more significant differences between now and when I was racing full time last is just that we're in the full Aero Kit program now. So I think that definitely helped me, and I think will continue to have been something that helps going forward.